And so in order for us to do that, there's a few different things that we are going to do, and you are seeing how we're making pretty historic and important investments in two specific areas. One, I'm committing $500 million to the Blueprint for Maryland's future, which is the largest investment by a governor. The second, we're committing $500 million to transportation. First, I'll go over the Blueprint. I'm thankful to the legislature for the work that has been done on the Blueprint for Maryland's future, because when we talk about what does it mean to have a 21st century education system and a world-class education system for our children, it is an education system that we know that our children deserve. And in order for Maryland to move ahead, it means we must be preparing our children and our workforce for that. I was proud to support the Blueprint. I was proud to testify on behalf of the Blueprint. And this work is critically overdue because too many of our students are trapped right now in a system that chronically fails them, fails their families. This helps to address that. But the Blueprint has been hobbled by an executive that refused to support its robust and its intentional implementation. And local districts are feeling it as well, because there's not just an implementation requirement that you have in the local jurisdictions, there's a fiscal requirement. And so I'm committed to the Blueprint and know that we must implement it sustainably and smartly. Our administration is ready to lean in and to work with our partners, beginning with MSDE and including everybody involved inside of this process, to ensure that that happens correctly and sustainably. The second piece is transportation. We need to have a transportation system that allows people to get from where they live to where opportunity lies. We need to create a transportation system in this state that this state actually deserves. Maryland is hungry for that. Maryland is hungry for a transportation system that is coordinated and that works. And transportation that prepares Maryland to win this next decade, whether we're talking about fixing roads and tunnels and highways, or whether we're talking about putting together significant investments in mass transit. We've got to make sure that with the right vision and effective professional management, that we can and we will get this done, because we're going to prioritize it. And so very soon, I'm excited that we'll be announcing a transportation secretary who will embrace that vision. And we'll work very closely with our partners in the legislature and across communities to ensure that we are going to have the resources in place to be able to leverage federal dollars and make sure that the implementation process is one that is successful. So I'll turn it back over to Secretary Gray to go into more detail on this.
Thanks. If we move to the next slide. So just to recap a little bit of what the governor alluded to, these are the details of what's being presented in the proposed fiscal 2024 budget with regard to first principle being cautious preservation of cash balances. So in light of the potential for recession in the months ahead and revenue volatility risks related to our income tax payments that are still due later this year, our budget maintains a rainy day fund at the target level of 10% of general fund revenue, or $2.5 billion next year. That is the recommendation of the Spending Affordability Committee, and we agree with them, as the governor said, that that's an appropriate level for the rainy day fund. In addition, over and above the rainy day fund, the general fund balance in the current proposed budget sits at $820 million for fiscal 24. This is over and above the rainy day fund. It serves as a strong hedge against revenue volatility and as dry powder for critical strategic investments, particularly in the areas that the governor has begun to speak about. Our administration will partner with the General Assembly to deploy our surplus intentionally and strategically. We must marshal a data-driven, evidence-based approach to spending state dollars. In addition, as the governor reported, over and above the rainy day fund and the surplus balance of $820 million, the budget deploys $1 billion of our additional cash to two of the state's highest priorities for economic growth. The budget contributes $500 million of general fund cash in fiscal 2024 to the Fund for the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, and it sets aside $500 million of general fund cash next year as a dedicated reserve to support strategic priority transportation projects across the state that align with our economic competitiveness goals. We believe that's critical to making progress on closing that gap on GDP growth with the nation and with our competing states. We, of course, aim to leverage this general fund funding with matching federal support. The next slide just shows a quick view of why we think shoring up the Blueprint Fund is an urgent priority. This shows the current projections for Blueprint Fund, which are supported by special fund revenue set aside by the legislature when the Blueprint Plan was passed. And what you see is that for fiscal '24, we're projecting the Blueprint Fund to have a $2.2 billion cash surplus. However, what you see is that given the pace of expense against the Blueprint Fund, and the expense estimates have certainly increased from the time the original vision for Blueprint was established several years ago, what you see is that over the course of the next 4 to 5 years, the Blueprint Fund balance is depleted. There's $1.5 billion projected revenue coming in each year to support the activities and the initiatives of the Blueprint Fund, but the overall balance and the cushion in that fund will be depleted going forward. The $500 million very important contribution that the governor's dedicated in the budget helps extend that out a year to give the time to do the really important practical feasibility implementation planning that's required in order for us to get this right.